The Steelers are playing the Houston Texans in a playoff matchup in Pittsburgh, and I get that everyone is saying the Steelers don't have a chance to win this game. The Texans are so good. They're so loaded. They're the best team in the NFL. This week, the Houston Texans is like the best team ever per everyone. And the Steelers are just so bad. They're so terrible. They don't stand a chance. We're old. We move slow. We shouldn't have been in playoffs. We got lucky. All the things you want to say. That is what's happening with the Steelers right now. And you know what? That's fine. However, if we're actually looking at these two teams, no one is ever going to say that that Houston Texans defense is not spectacular. That Houston Texans defense is absolutely spectacular. Let me say it again for all the people who never hear me say this correctly the first time I say it. The Houston Texans defense is spectacular. It is one of the best defenses in the NFL. Where the Houston Texans shine is their defense, and that is their team identity. And so what makes this Houston Texans team tough is the defense. We all know that. There's no secret with that. What I like about this matchup, though, for my Steelers is where the Houston Texans struggle is on offense. And I like my defensive line going against that Houston Texans offensive line because our defensive lines don't go against each other. I know that a lot of people are looking at stats and try to put our defensive lines against each other. They actually don't go against each other. So comparing the two of them doesn't make much sense because they don't go against each other. But if we look at that Texans offensive line and compare the Texans offensive line with the Steelers defensive line, now we can have a conversation. Just like I keep saying, if we look at the Houston Texans defensive line and look at the Steelers offensive line, that is where it gets interesting because the Steelers offensive line statistically grades really well. And so it is going to be an interesting matchup to see what happens with the Steelers on offense against that defense. It's going to be very interesting to see the Texans on offense against the Steelers defense. I am not here to tell you that the Steelers do everything perfect and it's going to be pretty and we're going to run away with this and we're going to blow out the Houston Texans. I'm not here to say that. But what we are going to be is we're going to be physical, just like the Houston Texans are going to be physical. This matchup is actually closer than what people are making it seem. Absolutely. Because the hype up is that every single thing the Texans does is absolutely fantastic. And that is only true when you look at the Texans defense and when you look at their kicker. So let me get into some things that I think the Steelers need to do if we're going to be able to beat the Texans on Monday night in the freaking playoffs. I wanted to interrupt your video just to give you a reminder to hit that like button, double check and make sure that you're subscribed to my channel. Believe it or not, there's a lot of people that are watching my content that are not subscribed to my channel. Turn on those notification bells. And if you feel like it, leave me a comment in the comment section below and I'll let you get back to your video. The Houston Texans have given up almost 50 sacks against teams in the NFL. That is not a great stat. So the Steelers have to find a way to exploit the Texans offensive line. Full stop. You have to get in there and you have to disrupt Stroud. You have to knock him out of his rhythm. You have to do things that will confuse him and whatever it takes to knock him off of his spot and confuse him. That is going to be super important. The second thing the Steelers absolutely have to do is you have to find a way to move the ball against that defense. I know they're all world and all great and oh my gosh, they're the best things ever. I got it. However, the Steelers have to find a way to move the ball against that Houston Texans defense. I know a lot of people watch us play the Cleveland Browns and they assume that we're more like the Cleveland Browns than the other games that you watch us play at the end of the season. That is a you problem. That's not a me problem. But the Steelers team can move the ball. They just have to have time to move the ball. And that's where it gets interesting. We don't know if the Steelers offensive line is going to be able to provide time to Aaron Rodgers. And if they are though, this game is not going to go a lot of ways that people think it's going to go. I don't understand why when we look at football, the only thing that we're focused on is this Houston Texans defense and how great they are. And oh my gosh, and oh my gosh, oh my gosh. They play one side of the football. And I'm not taking anything away from that defense because they are fantastic. But they don't play offense. They just play defense. So the way that the Steelers are going to have to take advantage of this Houston Texans team is going to be our defense against their offense. And I'm excited to see that. The key to this game is going to be turnovers, either direction, what happens there. The second key to the game is going to be whose defensive line wins against who. Is the Steelers defensive line going to win against the Texans offensive line? And is the Texans defensive line going to win against the Steelers offensive line? I think that's where this game is going to happen. I think whichever quarterback is going to be given more time and whatever quarterback is going to look more comfortable, I think is going to be the winner of this football game. This also feels like one of those games that could potentially ebb and flow a little bit. We could see a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a little bit of this because it's the playoffs. And anytime the playoffs happens, the games get a little bit tighter. They get a little bit harder. The windows get a little bit shorter and playmakers step up and make plays. And so heading into this game, it's going to be interesting to see what the Steelers offensive line looks like, what the Houston Texans offensive line looks like, and what both defensive lines look like. What cannot happen is we cannot have a Texans defense that is great, stellar, all-world, cool, great, we'll give them that, and then have an offense come in that feels just as comfortable as the defense should feel because they're good. And the Steelers are going to be responsible for matching the Houston Texans' energy on defense. That is going to be their challenge. They're going to have to match their energy. Do they have to outplay them? I don't think they have to outplay them, but they definitely have to match their energy and they definitely have to be physical. The best part about all of this is the Steelers are playing with house money. Some Steelers fans are hoping the Steelers lose so they can fire Coach Tomlin because that's all they can think about at night. And then the rest of the Steelers fans are like, I think we can do this. I think we can do this. And then there's a pocket of us that is like, hey, we can do this. We match up well with the Texans. There are some things that the Houston Texans do very well. There's also some things that we do well that we can also create some different things and make things complicated for the Houston Texans. And I'm excited to see that. Sign me up for that. The X factor for me is actually going to be special teams. Special teams is going to be very interesting in this game. The Houston Texans have a really good kicker, and the Steelers have a really good kicker. And the weather could be how it's going to be. I think both defenses are going to step up and come to play. And if that happens and the margin for error starts to dwindle, the thing that you have to point to is going to be special teams, the kicker and the punter. Can the punter shift field position? What is that going to look like? Is the kicker going to make all of their kicks? What are kickoffs going to look like when points are scored? So I think special teams in this game needs to be special. That would be fantastic. And whoever wins that turnover battle is probably going to win this game because that's kind of how I see this game. But hey, you never really know what's going to happen in the NFL playoffs. You never really know what's going to happen when the ball kicks off. You just never know what version of your team you're going to get. You just never really know. The one thing I am excited about is the Steelers are in the playoffs with the opportunity to win an NFL playoff game on Monday night. I don't care about the records either way. I don't care about the Steelers' home record on Monday night any more than I care about the Houston Texans' losing record in the playoffs on the road. None of those records matter to me. I want Coach Tomlin to get this playoff win. I want Coach Tomlin at the end of the game to get this playoff win and to have that under his belt and for us to move on. Will it happen? I don't really know, but that's what I want. And I am going to stick by my team. I am going to think that my team can pull this out and I'm going to cheer for them to pull this out because this is sports. That's what you do. Anything can happen in a football game. It doesn't matter who is on the other side of that. Sometimes it comes down to who wants it more, who's in the right position more than the other team, and who is going to make a play when the opportunity presents itself. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll see you in my next video.